and Natalie. Welcome to House Calls.
The Real Housewives contain some of the most bizarre and interesting women alive who, for a variety of reasons, open their homes to us. So we want to help you pay a house call.
Each week, we'll jump into an aspect of the Housewives, whether that's a specific city, housewife, or even just the music of a show. The only thing that'll be consistent is that it's never the same. But we will give you the context you need each week to know nothing and still enjoy getting to know these women the way we have.
This week, we are giving our thoughts on the finale of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. But first, some context.
So every season of Real Housewives is essentially formatted around parties and trips, because both give production a semi-organic occasion to get all the housewives together to create conflict and drama.
There's usually at least one party per episode, 2 vacations per season, though some parties and all vacations span multiple episodes.
Yep.
Every vacation is ostensibly sponsored by a housewife, though Bravo foots most of the bill.
Yeah, read all of it.
And every housewife has at least one event to throw for the group.
Yeah, which housewife gets more is generally determined by production, depending on both her ability and her standing within the group. And much of the subtext of the conflict for any given city surrounds who's given more screen time and more opportunity to self-promote through these events.
Vacations are put at the front of each season. The first is usually smaller, some kind of local day trip, while the second, usually international and extravagant, depending on the budget of the city and whether or not it is pre or post-COVID.
Yeah, these COVID trips have been local.
They've been local, all right.
The season finale is usually set just days after the housewives return from that final trip, and the first party at which they see each other. This final party is the most valued of the season, and almost always the messiest.
Not only have the conflicts usually reached a point where only Andy Cohen could possibly help, this is each housewife's last chance to make a pitch for them to keep their job next season.
Yeah.
The Housewives of Salt Lake City were a perfect example of that this season because our girls really gave it to you this one. They hit a home run in their finale.
Yeah, in order to set up the stage for the main event, though, as promised in our premise, we're going to give you a quick rundown of the story so far in Salt Lake City. So first, let's meet our housewives.
We start with Heather Gay, the voice of the audience, usually our hero. Heather used to be the golden child of the Church of the Latter-day Saints. She's a descendant of Shadrach Roundy, Joseph Smith's bodyguard, and the Nick Cannon of early Mormonism.
Yeah, it's really delightful to me how high esteem they hold him for being Joseph Smith's bodyguard. For those of you not in the know, Joseph Smith was famously murdered, and they don't mention that at all.
Yeah, they really don't bring up that part of the bodyguarding.
Nope, they're like, but the other days he did like a terrific job.
Heather herself is a former missionary who married Mormon royalty, a descendant of the driver of Howard Hughes, if you can call them royalty. And they had 3 beautiful daughters. She gave up her perfect life after seeing the cracks in Mormonism and losing her faith in the church. Despite dealing with the ramifications of her shattered life, Heather still loves to party.
Yeah, baby, that's what makes her perfect for this show!
She also runs an incredibly successful beauty enhancement spa, beauty lab, and laser. Every hero needs a best friend, and Heather found hers in
Whitney Rose. Whitney Rose is also a descendant of Shadrach Roundy and Heather's inbred polygamous cousin, as Lisa Barlow once put it. She's also my favorite impression to do probably on this whole show.
Oh, and that's a really fierce competition because there are so many good voices across so many of the different Housewife franchise.
Oh, on this show alone, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Some of the silliest voice women I've ever heard in my life.
Salt Lake City might have some of the best, just like all, in a pure numbers game, the most good voices for impressions.
But there's something about this high up here kind of slow but trying baby voice smoker that just lives in my soul. Yeah.
That is what's in your soul.
Yeah.
A stoned baby voice like Bosco.
Stone Baby's my brand. Whitney Rose was excommunicated from the Mormon Church after she and another married member of the church had an affair and ultimately left their spouses to be together. Whitney and her new husband, Justin, have a 10-year marriage and 2 kids. Though I don't know if you can call him a new husband after 10 years. Everyone on this show just seems to. Whitney also, despite being treated like a dumb blonde, runs a makeup company called Wild Rose Beauty. And she's really the fun one on this show. Whitney enjoys pole dancing, being way too horny on this show with her husband, pot stirring, and fighting with her and Heather's arch frenemy,
Lisa Barlow. Lisa, one of the other great voices to do on this show, grew up Jewish in New York and is now Mormon 2.0.
Mormon 2.0.
Out in Salt Lake City. Which means she's Mormon, but she always has a big gulp full of Pepsi and runs a tequila company. Vida Tequila. She does that with her husband, John.
John!
And she has 2 sons who started the men's grooming company Fresh Wolf. For no other reason, seemingly to earn her love. These boys aren't interested in capitalism in that way. They're not interested in this venture. They are interested in spending any time with their mother.
No, but Kris Jenner style, the only way she will spend any time with them is if she can also make money off of that time.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because Kris Jenner has way more kids to kind of spread this around between, but Lisa just has the 2.
Also, there's one that refuses to engage with it, and he's probably my hero of this series.
The only thing that is really genuine about Lisa is her love of fast food. That is maybe the more fun thing to watch about her. She loves Taco Bell. She only feeds her family on fast food. And her best friend of the show is Meredith Marks.
Meredith Marks is Salt Lake City's resident ice queen. Not only is her heart as frozen as her face, but she literally owns a jewelry boutique. She lives with her son, Brooks Marks, the tracksuit designer, and her husband, Soph, the venture capitalist, with whom she recently reconciled. On a sadder note, Meredith also lost her father this season, though she has largely been very guarded about this.
She also has a daughter, Chloe, who is away at college. Mm-hmm. Meredith not only loves her kids, but her kids love and like her. They cannot get enough of their mom in a way that is genuinely sweet.
There's a couple points in the show at which she turns them and is like, do you want to go, like, do something? You don't need to stay here. And they're like, no, we want to hang out with you, Mom.
And one of the reasons that I think that Meredith is so special in this show is she would obviously take a bullet for her children, which comes up when you see how she interacts with our next housewife, Jen Shaw. Jen is our lightning rod of the show, and especially this season. She's an ex-Mormon who left the church and converted to Islam after her husband, football coach Sharif, and possibly best husband of anyone in this franchise, quick sidebar.
I would pay money for a cameo from him to help me get out of bed in the morning.
His pep talks are the sweetest and most genuinely inspiring things ever.
Yeah.
But Sharif pointed out that the discrimination innate in the Church of the Latter-day Saints against him and his sons, all of whom were black, is what kept him at an arm's length from the religion. Jen lived a lavish lifestyle with 8 assistants and a glam squad, funded allegedly by her defrauding the elderly with scam phone calls.
Yeah, she's one of the main true crime characters of the Bravo universe.
Yeah, she's currently standing trial for this allegation, and may be facing up to 50 years. She's known for her erratic and explosive behavior, though she's mellowed a bit while on bail, which is a real shame because it's far from her glass-throwing days at the mere mention of
Mary M. Cosby, Jen's most explosive sparring partner, and this show's wild card. I'm afraid of her, so if I seem like I'm going easy on her, it's because I am afraid.
I'm afraid too.
Mary M. Cosby's tagline this season was, "If you come for me, I will send Jesus after you."
And I believe that she will.
I don't know that she's worshiping Jesus, but I know that whatever she is worshiping could really take me out, so I'm just gonna get through this.
I believe in you. I believe in your strength.
Oh my god, okay. Mary is the owner, preacher, and prophet of the church which she inherited from her grandmother after she married her step-grandfather, with whom she now has one son.
We've been holding hands the whole time, and we just keep gripping each other tighter.
This is just the truth of
I
the
know,
matter.
I know. They talk about it on the show. They talk about all of this on the show.
This is just what her life is. She is almost definitely using money from her very shady church to hoard luxury goods in her grandmother's mansion, which she has decorated to look like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
What's going on with those chairs? Let's move on. All right, and Jenny wins.
She's less scary to talk about, right?
Ooh, God. Honestly, she's not great to talk about either. But she's new this season.
Yeah.
She recently retired from running a series of chiropractic offices to focus on raising her 3 genuinely adorable children.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with Carlin.
Oh, Carlin is the best.
Can she be a housewife?
Carlin is her daughter, and she's the cutest little fucking kid in the world.
Mm-hmm.
She just loves science experiments with her mom.
She wants to make yogurt.
Oh, it's the best. On top of the rumors that most of her storylines this season were manufactured, several unearthed Facebook posts have proven her to be virulently racist and gotten her fired from this show. So I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Jenny. However, what I do want to talk about is...
the conflicts of the season.
Oh, yeah!
Oh, yeah, baby. We've had some good ones. Now, most of the conflicts of this show tend to pretty much boil down to one person facing up with another person. These are straight up boxing matches. They'll pull other people in, but usually they just boil down to a versus. And probably the biggest and most overarching conflict of this show has been Jen versus Meredith. See, on top of Jen just being erratic and abusive to all of her friends, when Meredith was separated, these two allegedly fucked all of New York together.
All of it, baby!
Oh, man, they split it betwixt the two.
Allegedly Harry Dubin, allegedly.
Allegedly. But when the show started, Jen brought Meredith's escapades up without admitting her own involvement, despite the fact that Meredith had been separated while Jen's just fucking married. Things got worse when Jen started homophobically cyberbullying Meredith's son after he brought up on TV that he saw her vagina. I just thought I'd take a second to let that land before I move on, because Saint Meredith and Jen managed to leave much of that behind this season until Jen got mad that Meredith wanted to distance her after she was arrested on charges of defrauding the elderly. So needless to say, that one was a roller coaster.
Yeah, everyone this season keeps looking at Meredith and being like, why can't you just move past things with Jen? And Meredith ended up hiring a private investigator because she found out that some of the death threats she was receiving were coming from people in Jen's team. Yeah. Or at least that there was reasonable cause to believe in accordance to what the private investigator had found.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you are new to Housewives, by the way, but cyberbullying other housewives' children, very much not a part of this show.
Famously off limits to go for someone's kids.
Yeah, no one had done this before, and everybody's like, I don't get why Meredith is so mad at Jen.
Yeah, so these two understandably have a long way to go before they can resolve some of their conflict. Now, a conflict that has been seemingly going on much longer and boiling over for years is Lisa versus, as she calls it, bad weather.
Bad weather. Whitney and Heather, bad weather.
So, yeah, she came up with this stupid little nickname for Whitney and Heather, weather, and they're bad, so it's bad weather.
Bad weather.
So Lisa and Whitney and Heather have been fighting since seemingly well before filming.
Yeah.
As we put it before, Lisa referred to them as inbred polygamist cousins.
So that's where they're at.
Heather and Whitney felt like they were iced out by Lisa early on in this show because they were ex-Mormons, and Lisa, Mormon 2.0, wanted to distance herself from them to maintain her standing in the church. This is almost definitely the case.
It's probably true. It seemed like what was happening, yeah.
Should we just throw an allegedly in there? Yeah. Lisa was expecting to be received as the hero of the season, but was instead the villain, and clearly a hated person by production based on her edits. Like, even just the music she gets to underscore, some of the angles that they choose to shoot her from. Yeah. Lisa Barlow does not seem like someone that is maybe easy to shoot with, and that's why production has given her these edits.
No, her voice is fun for me to do, but I think when you listen to it for hundreds of hours, it wears.
Probably wears on your soul.
It wears a little bit.
Bad Weather, however, are fan favorites, and because of that, Lisa kisses their asses to their face, and then tries to undermine them behind their backs.
A lot of that tactic is exactly what's at play in our next major conflict, Meredith versus Lisa, which to me is the sleeper hit of the season.
Yeah, Lisa really is the girl that your mom asked you why you're not still friends with and hanging out with more.
Yeah, and you really don't have all of the time that it would take to explain what exactly is the reason why you're not friends with Lisa. But to break down this conflict, Meredith is essentially mad that Lisa is still close friends with Jen Shaw, despite everything that I just broke down for you before. And Meredith, feeling betrayed by Lisa, became quite close with Mary M. Cosby. This made Lisa jealous because she dislikes Mary. There's a lot of reasons to dislike Mary. I'm not entirely sure why Lisa dislikes Mary. And ultimately, her true feelings came out in a closed-door conversation with a producer caught on a hot mic. Now, a hot mic is a trope of the Housewife universe, for better or worse. Did they know they were mic'd? Did they forget? Who knows? But I would like, if it's okay with you, to read this transcript here today.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, because I think I could not possibly summarize it better than she says it
bears
herself.
repeating.
Yeah, it really does bear repeating. Meredith can go fuck herself. I'm done with her. Because I'm not a fucking whore and I don't cheat on my husband. Her and her dumb fucking family that poses. Why don't you own a house? Oh wait, you can't because your husband changes jobs every 5 minutes. Meredith is a piece of shit. I had your back and I'm offended by that. Fuck you. That fucking piece of shit garbage whore. I fucking hate her. She's a whore. She fucked half of New York. She can go fuck herself.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot to say about your friend. Especially
of 10 years.
Of 10 years. And interestingly, because Lisa said that to none of the housewives, just a producer, this is not something that they saw until after the entire season came out.
No, they didn't see it until, as Meredith puts it, I think like 48 hours before they all meet for a reunion. Because she clearly knows about it when she's on Watch What Happens Live before it airs and they show a little producer, like behind the scenes sneak peek of it.
Yeah, the fallout of this moment and the divide of these two is something that they don't even know is going to be the focus of the next season, but it clearly is. One of the other focuses of this season, though, was
Mary versus Whitney.
Ooh.
These two were fast friends last season, but Whitney alleges that getting close to Mary had a dark and abusive underside that she put up with until Mary got mad at her for not calling her back within a 3-hour window and then not falling for her prank. These are grown women.
These are
mothers.
Writing a lot of this was very fun for me.
And their friendship has fallen into fighting since. The prank aforementioned, by the way, was that Mary gave Whitney a different dress code than everyone else, which sounds like the most housewife thing in the entire world, and sounds like a very, like, hoity-toity prank, until you realize that the dress code given to most people was Italian streetwear, something very fashionable, and then Whitney was sent pictures of, like, a stripper mobster's girlfriend.
Yeah. Which,
like fedoras, thongs, money guns. It was ridiculous.
It was absurd. And Mary's logic was, well, I knew you had the outfit at home. Which Whitney said, yeah, but I'm not gonna wear it in public. That wasn't the only fight Mary got in this season, though.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. She also got in a fight with, the housewife that we want to talk about the least, Jenny Wen. See, Jenny was brought in this season by Lisa, so she's a pretty close friend of hers, and Lisa encouraged Jenny to go after Mary pretty much right away to try to undermine Meredith's friendship with Mary. which Jenny did to try to earn her snowflake.
And earn it she did.
For the season, she earned it. And in retaliation, Mary has been committing a series of micro and macro racial aggressions against Jenny. Both of these women are people of color, both of them are racist, and the white cast has no idea how to process it.
Nor does Andy Cohen.
No! He's not equipped for this! So all of this information, all of this conflict takes us into our main event.
Yeah, our final party of the season here is where everything's boiling over to a head, as it always does. This year's main event is Lisa's 80s-inspired Vita Tequila crystal-adorned bottle launch party. If that seems wordy, that's what it was. That's what they did there.
Also, if this seems like, oh, that's probably weird, right? That she had a party with this many themes, that's not usual for housewives. No. No, this is what they do.
The weird thing about this one, though, is that even though it was 80s inspired, Lisa was adamant that nobody dress overly 80s. And so it became very quickly muddied what the line for what was too 80s was. So you had some people that were, like, in full-on Magnum P.I. drag.
Yeah.
And then you had some people who had, like, a deep side part and, like, a little bit of volume in the hair and a slight shoulder pad.
Yeah, it really only makes sense in the context that she was probably trying to make Whitney look stupid.
Yeah, everyone's trying to make Whitney look stupid, but Whitney actually was doing a little bit better this time, and she just straight up looked at Lisa before the event and said, "Can you send me some reference photos?" And then Lisa was trapped because she would have had to admit that she was trying to break Whitney the same way that someone had already tried to break Whitney and failed to earlier this season.
Yeah, it was a real checkmate, bitch. But before we get into the party, I did just want to talk about two moments right about up top that I wanted to talk about that I thought kind of encapsulated the kind of weird tone of a lot of these shows. The first being incredibly goofy and the second being pretty serious. The first one I wanted to talk about, obviously, was Meredith's photo shoot.
Yes, Meredith Marks in this episode has an absolutely amazing photo shoot for her jewelry. As Kate mentioned before, Meredith has a jewelry line in Salt Lake City, which she, I think, very eloquently put is for everybody. A lot of people ask her if she's going to do a men's line of jewelry, but she, very forward-thinking and ally queen that Meredith Marks is, says, what is clothing or accessories for a specific gender? I make jewelry, and whoever wants to wear that jewelry should wear that jewelry.
Exactly. Do you want to look elegant? Wear Meredith Marks jewelry. That's what it's about.
Yeah,
baby.
We're not sponsored by them, but oh my god, if she decided to send us jewelry, I would start shilling her, and I want to just put this... No one listens to this podcast now. Thank you to the one person that probably listens to this, to our friends, and then maybe one confused person that thought this was something else that clicked on it.
Or who liked my tweets.
Yeah, whoever you are, if you're here, thank you. But we know you're not Meredith Marks. And for some reason, if this ever did reach Meredith Marks, I would start backing you in every fight you had, regardless of whether or not I believed it. I would just... It does not matter. I know that's not the kind of friend that you need or are looking for right now, but just in case you wanted one more like that, here's two more.
Yeah, I personally am broke and will happily become a corporate shill. And if someone wants to give me money or a sponsorship, I will sell every last one of my values for it.
Especially if that's something from one of these Housewife franchises, because that makes it camp on top of everything.
If I also get to be friends with a housewife, I would do basically anything.
Real quick, Kate, which housewife would you most want to be friends with out of Salt Lake City?
Ooh, out of Salt Lake City, honestly, I'd want to be friends with Heather, because I know it's a broken part of my brain, but I'm like, I need to know, I'm pretty sure she's a very good person who just doesn't know what a good friend is, and I think I could show her. And that's how I feel.
You are a very good friend.
Thank you. But it's also not hard to be a better friend than Jen Shaw.
It's not that hard.
No, it's a low bar. I also wanted to mention that we talked about a little bit about Jen kind of homophobically bullying Meredith's son.
Yes.
But he's like 20. He's not... Yeah. out. He's at that stage of his own queerness where he doesn't even know where he sits on the spectrum.
Well, yeah, I don't want to ever speak for anyone on their sexuality, especially not Brooks, who has had a lot of people speak for him on his sexuality.
Yeah.
But it becomes clear that in that episode that Brooks does not wish at that point to come out as any one particular identity, but just feels very enveloped by love and acceptance by being in this space that is primarily surrounded by it's this space is comprised entirely of his family and models that are different queer people.
I think this shows...
So this clearly becomes a very safe place for Brooks, and it's really beautiful watching him express that feeling to his parents and that gratitude for creating that space to his mom.
Yeah, it's really... I think Brooks really reveals this kind of nuance between knowing you're not straight and knowing what you are. And it's just so beautiful. I know that's a really scary part of your journey to show your parents, especially because, like, you want to show your parents what you're sure about. And so to show your parents this kind of, like, unsureness and to bring them into that, and to see someone who, frankly, Seth's not the sharpest tool in the drawer. You know, to see him really rise to the occasion here is delightful.
Yeah, Seth Marks, Brooks's dad and Meredith's husband, really does kind of embody everything that is, like, Gen X bro culture. So he's not the kind of person that you'd expect to be this accepting, loving, nurturing father figure, but he really does try his hardest and love his kids so much in a way that, it's refreshing to just see that depiction of parenthood in general.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really important reminder that no person is perfect, but at the core of it, if you love your child and want the best for them and just want and do everything based in something that respects their autonomy, which is what Seth is doing, then I think that you're at least attempting to do right by your kid, and that's a really, really nice thing to watch.
Yeah, and I'm drawn to fathers rising above their own ability for no reason in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on Seth.
Don't worry about it. But I think what's so nice about this photo shoot is it has this kind of serious undercurrent, but it's so lighthearted. I mean, Seth's twirling Meredith around in his arms.
Yeah.
You've got
everyone's wearing these beautiful jewel-toned satin suits.
Stunning. You've got Chloe and Brooks, brother and sister, taking a picture, and they're doing that classic pose, which podcast, classically a visual medium. It's like the dude is behind the girl with his head kind of over her shoulder, and then his, like, hand is kind of, like, over the whole front of her chest.
It's like a modeling headlock.
Yes! Thank you, Natalie. It is a modeling headlock, and it is very weirdly sexual, and Kanye does it a lot. And I don't like it. But... but Chloe has, Chloe is in this pose and sort of whispers to her brother, "This is weirdly sexual." And Brooks just whispers, "We don't have to be brother and sister in the picture."
Yeah, which is iconic.
Iconic! And I just love this show for that exact balance of thing.
And just a little bit to speak more on the balance and the nuance of this show, the second moment that we see leading up to this big end party is Heather's father's funeral.
Yeah. Heather lost her dad at the start of COVID about a year ago, and they were not on speaking terms at the time of his passing because her father was a very devout Mormon who was deeply saddened by her decision to leave the church.
Yeah, and as Heather gets into in that episode, it seemingly is far beyond the decision to leave the church, a decision that several of her other siblings have made as well, but the fact that Heather is going on national TV and talking about that decision, and talking about being happy in that decision, that was really the thing that her father, as she puts it, had been someone who was so devout, not only in his belief, but in his spreading of the beliefs of Mormonism, that it was really hard for her to come to terms with the fact that he fundamentally did not agree with her decisions at the time of his death. But she comes to a very beautiful place of acceptance and understanding that even though they would never have agreed on that, she can think back on these very happy moments with her father and a lot of the love that there was there.
Yeah. And it's particularly tough, and I think part of the reason is a particularly Mormon flavor, how deeply this has fractured their family, because a lot of the Mormon religion is sort of founded on the idea that if you are not Mormon, you will not make it into heaven. And so it does come from this almost loving place that her father just desperately wants to have his whole family there with him in heaven, in a way that, you know, I'm Catholic, and there's even more leeway there with our religion, where, like, I remember asking a priest, like, oh my God, are my Jewish friends not going to heaven? And thank God I had a priest who was like, no, if they're good people, they're going to heaven. Don't worry about that. Because, like, it's cultish to be that concerned, to have to be part of a religion to be a good person.
Yeah, obviously the Church of Latter-day Saints has come up a lot of times in this podcast because it is the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
It sure is.
It's fundamentally intertwined with almost every aspect of these women's lives, but especially just religion in general. As we said, Mary has her own church. They're not Mormon, they're Pentecostal. Lisa and Meredith both grew up Jewish.
Yeah.
We've got Whitney, who is ex-Mormon and still kind of finding her way through things, hasn't kind of landed anywhere. Similar place with Heather, only just now, at the end of this episode, finally declaring herself officially ex-Mormon.
Yeah. And there's something, I think, really just interesting about Heather feeling so conflicted about having all of these people who have left the Mormon church, ostensibly because of her and because of her story, and her sort of feeling that her leaving was not a moment of advocacy for her. It was just something she felt she needed to do, and that the advocacy element of it is both a positive and something she feels really conflicted about.
Someone who gives her a lot of closure and validation in those feelings clearly during the scene with her father's memorial is her brother Tyler.
Yeah.
He makes sure to just acknowledge the work that she did in terms of, you know, being kind of the golden child that left, and what an emotional burden that was for her, and how that led to a place where he felt ultimately like he could confront those feelings and leave, and that ultimately it was easier for him, and that their parents, especially their mother, has been a lot easier on Tyler than she has been on Heather.
And just like that, we are immediately transported to Lisa's, and I'm going to repeat the title here because I think it bears repeating, Lisa's 80s-inspired Vita Tequila Crystal Adorned Bottle launch party!
Yeah, you'd think there was a shorter version of what that event was, but there's not.
No, there's no shorter version of the event, and there's no segue between a funeral and two adults in a go-kart with a Vita Tequila logo on the side.
Yes, the Vita Tequila car, as Lisa likes to call it, is a glorified go-kart with their brand embellished on the sides of it, which Jen does an incredible job of selling the fact, the idea that this is any sort of, like, a fun thing when she shows up to the event.
Jen sells that shit like it's the Goodyear blimp. She walks in and she's like, the Vita Tequila car!
Yeah, the way that you're like, oh, you know, like, Ripley's Believe It or Not, or...
Yeah, it's the Google Maps car.
Yeah, no, she pretends that this is a thing.
Yeah, because Lisa's whole deal is basically that she's constantly trying to be an icon already, and act as though she has simply always been one, which is a con that is both a common hustle on Housewives, and I deeply fucking respect.
Yeah, it's only difference is she's not terribly likable, and she's just doing it very, very visibly. And so everyone wants her to be the villain that it seems like she's destined to be, and she just refuses to steer into that narrative.
Yeah, not very likable was such a kind way for you to put it. I would say even she's full-ass unpleasant to be around.
The editors sure do seem to think so.
They sure do seem to think so. Yeah, in prep for this party, they have a little counter on how many times she says, I love that. And she says it 16 times.
Yeah, so God bless to whoever had to edit that.
Also, I do like that she plays into the camp of it with the last one where she goes, I don't just like that. I love that.
Yeah, it honestly makes me concerned that she's doing it on purpose.
I think that she thinks that she is Randy Jackson.
Oh, that's like her catchphrase?
Yeah, well, she talks like she's on, like she's trying to swerve you in like a competition judging show, just like, I don't like that. I love that.
Yeah, she is honestly speaking for the edit.
But they won't be her friend.
No, the editors will not do anything in her favor, which I think, kudos to them.
Kudos to them. So basically everybody gets to this party, and Lisa, in a classically unappealing style, goes, I hope nobody shows up in, like, 80s themed costumes. That would be so gross.
Yeah, because she seemed pretty unclear on this 80s inspired event.
And I think it says something just incredible that Whitney, having learned from earlier in the season when somebody tried to get her on an outfit mistake, put Lisa on the spot by just asking for a style mood board. So she's looking good, but Lisa does her friend Jenny dirty, and clearly does not tell her that this is supposed to be 80s inspired, so whatever you do, don't try to dress up like Madonna or I'll bully you backstage.
Yeah, because Jenny and Dewey show up in very, very 80s wear, as do Meredith and Seth.
Yes. Both Seth and Dewey, you know what? I may not like either of those two men particularly, but I always appreciate when a man goes, ooh, an event? I'm gonna get like an extra shoulder pad up in here.
I also would like to go ahead and out you. You like Seth.
I do like Seth! It's the worst part of me, but I don't know. He's like if a golden retriever became a person and that person like almost drowned in a pool of Red Bull and then like got stuck in a hospital room where only Ridiculousness was on for 10 years.
That is a description.
Yes, it was too long, I think, but there are parts of it that I stand by.
No, I don't think you should stand down for any part of that description.
Thank you.
I'm not disagreeing with it necessarily. It just had a lot of layers to it. And you know what? In many ways, I think Seth has a lot of layers to him.
He really does, because I just love watching a dumb himbo trying to be a good dad, despite the fact that he is a low-rent Dane Cook.
I do, yeah, I really agree, especially with, I think that it's like if a dog switched consciousness with a person and, like, had to deal with an existential crisis for the first time.
Yeah!
That's always the look on Seth's face.
Seth is like a guy at the beginning of a movie about how a very rowdy dog comes into his life and reminds him to have fun again.
And at the beginning of this evening, Seth turns to Meredith as they're still in the car pulling up, and basically, just innocuously, in his typical positive, fun-loving way, just goes, are you ready to have a good time tonight? Or something to that effect. And Meredith immediately goes, I'm ready to have a great time. I just want to make sure everyone behaves.
And Seth's not a smart guy, but he's been married to Meredith for 25 years, and you watch his whole face go, oh god, we're starting at here?
Yeah, I am paraphrasing them both, but truly the gist of the exchange is that Seth, really, he discovered how far gone everything was with Meredith and the rest of the group in that moment as they were pulling up to the party.
There's something really delightful in how, in kind of the early setup of this party, all of these husbands are acting as though, hey, we're gonna go to a party for our friend Lisa. And then all of these women are like, we have gone through a 3-month hell, and quite frankly, I'm ready to stab at least 3 of these women.
Yeah, it is absolutely wild the way that, I think you say it very well there. The complete difference in the energy between the two groups. 2
totally different lives being lived.
The only one of the husbands that seems to have any sense of the reality, unsurprisingly, is Sharif.
Sharif, I missed him. I love him so much, and he gets a little moment in this episode with Mary, weirdly.
Yeah, strangely enough, he and Mary have, like, a really kind of bonding exchange.
Yeah, because Sharif is, you know, he's a very religious guy, and he's he's forgiven Jen, he's not one to judge, you know? And so he's very grateful to Mary for taking Jen to her insane church. However, he did not go, so he did not see how insane it was. And clearly Jen just went home and said positive things because she's in a very weirdly good mood lately.
Yeah, it seems like maybe the worst thing that Jen could have said about that was like, oh yeah, it was kind of odd, but it was nice. They were all really sweet to me.
Yeah, exactly. And he's very grateful to her, and it does inspire one of my favorite moments of this episode when Mary goes, you know, you can't, when bad things happen, you can't wobble in it. You can't wobble in it.
I don't wobble in pain. I don't wobble in sorrow. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, she's clearly trying to say wallow, and she keeps saying wobble, and it is, oh man, it's so good. Especially, I don't like to make fun of people just messing up speaking. I mess up the way I talk all the time. But Mary is such a bitch to so many people about the way they talk. Specifically, she was so awful to Jenny.
Yeah, exactly.
About the way that she spoke all season. So the fact that she's just walking around being like, I don't wobble in it.
When karma comes for a bitch, I just don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And Mary continues to be just a huge bitch in this episode. In, frankly, such an entertaining way. She spends, like, about a minute and a half in the confessionals just talking shit about Lisa's tequila.
Yeah, Mary very easily could have just been like, I don't really drink very often, which is true. We very rarely see Mary drink on camera. Every once in a while she'll have like a little champagne. But there's not a lot of drinking that she does on camera usually. But then she, instead of saying just that she doesn't like to drink, she just chooses to say, Lisa's tequila tastes like water. It's just not good.
Which, by the way, it definitely does, right?
I don't know. I've never tried Vita Tequila. Vita Tequila.
Guys, should I buy it?
I think that we should at least try it one time in one of our cocktails.
I looked it up. It's $45. Honestly, somebody who listens to this, Venmo me $45 and I will buy this tequila. I want to take after my women and I will absolutely plumb this audience for any cent that they have.
This is I think we said it before, we are not above taking a sponsorship.
No.
And even if that sponsorship is just, I want to know how bad that tequila is. Yeah. Please, and if you listen to this and you're, like, one of our friends, and you want to come on the podcast and drink the terrible tequila with us, please do.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll take suggestions. You know, it's early days.
It's early days.
We're figuring it out. But Mary takes the time to talk shit about this tequila, which is just fucking delightful. But honestly, I do find it it's one of the more relatable things about Mary, is that she is so often irritated by how trashed these women get so quickly. Like, it's not, and I relate to it not in the sense that I'm super sober or anything, but we've all been there, right? In a room full of people where we're like, I'm having one beer, and then all of a sudden all of these monsters have had like 7 shots, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, it happened, the change happened so fast that you just have no idea when it happened. If it's truly, at least for me, it comes from a place of not being able to drink very fast or keep up in that way. So I just have no idea where I'm like, oh man, it's been taking me a while to nurse this pint.
Yeah, truly, if I'm not drinking a lot, it's either because my tummy hurts or I'm broke. Like, I'm not trying to be fancy.
No.
But you really see it when Whitney decides to go up to kind of, I don't know, confront, apologize, it's unclear, to Mary, and is immediately, very obviously, super trashed.
Yeah, and Whitney has a history of fight-apologizing in the past. For some reason, she gets drunk and then decides that is the moment to confront someone about the drama that they have been having. I understand that confrontation is tough, baby, but I allegedly have heard a rumor that Whitney Rose occasionally likes a little bit of marijuana. And I think that maybe that would be the recreational substance that would be better for her to begin these confrontations with, because she at least is in just such less of an elevated place.
Yeah. And it becomes apparent immediately because, Mary's frankly usually out of pocket, and in this instance is mostly not, because Whitney kind of sits down to be like, I'm sorry for talking about your church. And Mary, very, in one of her more emotionally honest moments on the show, just goes, why did you do it? In a way that she clearly, sincerely wants to know. And Whitney, who is wasted, can't process that question or chooses to just move right past it, because she just goes, I talked about your church, and I'm sorry about that. And, you watch Mary shut down in that moment, and the things she does after are not great, but, this is why you have to be careful. I get it, like you were saying, this in vino veritas kind of thing, but you want to, make sure that you can actually handle these confrontations when they're happening.
Yeah, it's really tough, too, because Mary has used a lot of different things to dismiss Whitney, including Whitney being drunk at events where, a tequila party where it's completely acceptable for people to be drinking and be a little bit intoxicated.
Sure, there's nothing wrong with her being drunk. That's not the problem.
No, but she makes a very good point when she's just like, can I get a sober Whitney for this conversation? So, as an example of some of the drunk shenanigans Whitney has gotten into this season, she dropped a cake.
Yes. Not one time did she drop a cake, Natalie.
Not 2 times did she drop a cake.
No, 3 times she dropped a cake.
Ooh, that cake. And she just kept trying to pick it back up was the thing.
Yeah. And I think it's hard for Whitney, too, because, like you said, a lot of these events are alcohol-based. And a lot of these events, as I kind of mentioned at the top of this episode, span multiple episodes. So sometimes it feels like Whitney has been drunk for 3 episodes, when in reality, in her life, she's been drunk for 3 hours at a party.
Yeah. It's really interesting when, especially these trips, too, where sometimes the drama from one night will span for so long that you'll kind of get lost in, and you're just like, oh my gosh, have they actually been fighting for an entire week? And no, they've been fighting for 2 days.
Yeah. There was a moment fully after they got back from, not the trip to Zion, and, Whitney was just at her house taking care of her kids, doing yoga, and I'm like, oh my god, right, Whitney's a fully normal functioning person. She was just on vacation.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting that, sure, these are people with a lot of money and a lot of, whatever attracts you to wanting to be on a reality TV show, so maybe that predisposes you to, certain, whatever, partying. I don't know, but yeah. I also think that it's just because of the nature of the show. Like we said, these episodes are based around vacations and parties, so I truly think that a lot of it is that you just see these people at their wildest moments. If someone recorded you only when you were on vacation or at parties, you would look like a totally different version of your day-to-day life. I know I would.
Oh, yeah, and as somebody who personally identifies as a Whitney, I really see in her the worst quality in myself is that I have a tendency to drunkenly overestimate my own sobriety. And so, as I've kind of, gotten older, I've gotten better at being like, no, I'm drunk, I shouldn't do that. But when I was younger, I would just really be like, I'm fine, I can do it. And that shit gets you into trouble.
Yeah.
And it sure does get Whitney into trouble.
Know your limits, people.
Yeah, know your limits. And maybe if Whitney had known her, she would have been able to manage it better, but she sort of starts this confrontation with Mary right next to Heather and Jenny. And Jenny has been obviously fighting with Mary all season.
Yeah, things have been boiling over between the two of them for all of the obvious things that we mentioned before. And, while we found all of these Facebook posts, as we mentioned before, from Jenny, and we should not overlook those. What Mary did and said to Jenny was not okay. In any way, it was so offensive. It was so inappropriate. It was horrifyingly racist. And so, understandably, Jenny has been boiling over, really ready to confront Mary. Yeah. Jenny was visibly upset when Mary was ignoring her when she first got to the party, and now that they're all sitting down together and she heard Whitney confront Mary and Mary say, I'm not a mean person.
Yeah. And I have a lot of, I think that's really well put, Natalie, because I have a lot of trouble speculating on this moment with everything we've kind of found out since. Because on the one hand, I can see that she's clearly very upset with Mary, but there is an element of staging, I think, to this. That, like...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Jenny's anger with Mary comes from a very genuine place, but wow, she is thirsty for the screen time in this episode.
Yeah, girl, like, this party's gonna go on a long time. You can wait a minute and have your fight with Mary once Whitney has her fight with Mary.
No, it's hilarious to watch her act. Like, Whitney's holding her back a little bit physically, and and Jenny just breaks through Whitney's arm. And it's just like, no, I am going to take this moment to jump on Mary, too.
Yeah.
Which, it's just tough, too, because it makes it harder for either of their points to land when Whitney makes hers drunk and Jenny makes hers on top of Whitney's point.
I think both of those really get at another common Housewives trope, which is someone making a very good point very poorly in a way that really undermines what they're trying to say.
Oh, it happens so often.
Oh
in these
my
shows.
God, the calling card, truly.
Yeah.
Nene Leakes' whole raison d'etre.
Yeah. We'll get into it when we talk about the Real Housewives of Atlanta, but that's some of the most interesting character growth, as Kate, you've expressed to me many times in the past.
Yeah.
Is Nene Leakes learning kind of how to catch up to that sort of conversation.
Exactly, because you see a lot of these villains are wrong about things but better at expressing their points. And so they're good at undermining kind of our heroes who are easily overwhelmed because it's something real that they feel. You know?
Yeah. I think that touches to a very relatable emotional existence.
It really does. But you know what's not a relatable emotional existence? Just the weirdness of this fight with Mary and Jenny, which is so... I think what it boils down to, and probably honestly why Jenny forced this fight, is that Mary is smart enough to know that having this fight gives Jenny screen time, and Mary is trying to ice her out of the cast. So I actually don't think that if Jenny had gone up to her and gone, "Can we go talk?" I think Mary would have just said no and walked away.
Oh yeah, she had been doing that the entire time.
Yeah, so as hard as I've been on her, I'm thinking about it a little bit now and just being like, ooh, she forced it, yeah, but there was no way Mary was going to let her have the fight otherwise.
Right, but the place that it gets to is so ridiculously manufactured. At least the way that it appears. I think Jen Shaw sums it up pretty well. So basically, Mary starts walking away, as you said, trying to ice out Jenny, and Jenny just yells something to the effect of, "Don't walk away, Mary," and she throws her glass.
Yeah.
And anyone who is familiar with the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City knows that famously last season, Jen Shaw threw a glass at her own party.
Yeah.
Which I think is an important detail there. You know, at least that was her own party.
It was.
Technically, that was Sharif's party. That was her husband's party. But it was at the mention of Miriam Cosby.
It was.
And so Jen, witnessing that moment, and Jenny's, frankly, half-assed throw, just goes, "Wow, Jenny, been there, done that, and I think my glass went further."
Yeah. Glass throws are another common trope of housewives.
Oh, yeah. Throwing glass.
Yeah.
Throwing a glass of wine or a drink at someone.
It comes from this, like, producer place of kind of, look, in real life, these women would probably hit each other. But you can't do that on TV, so a lot of times the coaching that you'll kind of get from producers is, well, if you get mad at her, just throw a glass of wine, or, like, flip a table or something. You know, something that can't hurt anybody, but that kind of amplifies the tension and builds to a natural kind of peak for the scene that they need. But the problem with that is a lot of housewives who can kind of feel the limelight slipping from them will use that as a sort of...
Yeah, these table flips, these thrown glasses have become such tropes of the drama of Housewives that, one, they can... If they're manufactured, they can just... Sorry, I want to take that again. The table flipping and glass throwing of these series have, at this point, become so famous that if it is manufactured, it just is so obvious from the start.
The reason that Jen's glass throw, you feel it. Her face is contorted in rage. She's screaming. She's, like, obviously upset in a way that has been building. And she just, it's a very, like, she turns away from everybody to try not to hurt them, but clearly just has to release something in that moment. In a way where Jenny, it's such a weird... You can kind of tell in that moment that she's not sure where to throw the glass. Because it goes to this weird halfway point that says she goes to throw it at Mary, clearly goes, oh wait, I shouldn't throw it at Mary, and then kind of goes down in the last minute, so it goes only to about the halfway point.
Yeah, and almost hits a cameraman.
Yeah, it's oddly more out of control than I think a lot of out of control moments, because there's this weird element of contortion to it. And it's, you know, in defense of the Housewives, I think the weirdness of that scene is why they don't chase Mary out. Which is, to be clear, when one housewife has a glass thrown at her and leaves the room, her friends should follow her.
Yeah, also, oddly enough, Mary is the one that, for some reason, leaves this party instead of Jenny.
People go up to Jenny after she throws this glass and ask, are you okay?
Yeah, when she's... and Lisa later on, when talking to her, Jenny's like, oh my god, Lisa, I'm so sorry, I don't know what came out. And Lisa's like, no, it's fine. Like, seemingly doesn't care. Like, well, I mean, it's Lisa. It all seems manufactured, so she probably cares.
If there's somebody who coached Jenny to do that, it's probably her friend Lisa. The only kind of real thing in that moment that you hear from her after she goes, it's fine, but don't throw the crystal adorned bottles. Those are expensive.
Yeah.
She knows. And, you know, just adding to these, Mary, for as frankly bad of a person as she is, has these, like, kind of bursts of emotional reality. And she has one as she walks outside and realizes that Meredith, someone who she's really been there for all season, did not follow her out. In fact, nobody followed her out. And she just kind of turns around and goes, nobody follows me. Huh. I guess these women aren't my friends.
Yeah, it cuts to her in a confessional, wondering who her true friends are as she looks for her car.
Yeah, and frankly she should, because the women just absolutely plow past it.
Yeah, the night seems to move on pretty quickly, everyone has fun for a little bit longer, and then the second huge confrontation of the night
tonight's a twofer.
out. Oh yeah, this is a classic twofer.
You know, it's a good party when there are two different huge scream fights. And this one kind of starts as Meredith versus Lisa. At this point, again, no one has heard her hot mic moment. So everyone is still just reacting to what are really underlying tensions at this point.
And Whitney and Heather, mostly Heather, bad weather.
Bad weather! Whitney and Heather, bad weather!
Are trying to press Lisa a little bit on where her and Meredith are at right now.
Yeah, she's putting them on the spot a little bit, but not too hard. And Lisa immediately gets huge deer in the headlight eyes.
Yeah, Lisa seems pretty terrified of Meredith.
And you'd think that this would probably spiral into a fight about Lisa and Meredith.
Yeah, but just like the other fight of the evening, it starts between two people and somehow ends between one of those people and then another person.
Yeah, get ready if you start watching any Housewives because of this podcast to watch a lot of fights that start to be about one thing and then end to be about a completely different thing.
Yeah, usually when these things are boiling just under the surface, what a fight is truly about comes out pretty quick.
Yeah, a lot of this show, I think the compelling part of it is trying to figure out what are these fights really about.
And a lot of this fight seems to really be about the fact that Meredith feels like nobody has really had her back in the last couple of years, which have been very hard for her.
Yeah.
Meredith and her husband went through a separation, which she talked about being very difficult, and her friends talked a lot of shit about her behind her back, and what she did during her social life and personal life during that time.
Yeah, and Jen specifically took advantage of their friendship to spread this stuff about Meredith. Meredith trusted her with clearly a lot of information about what was going on in her marriage.
And now, over a season later, that wound is still incredibly fresh because Jen and Meredith's relationship has not healed because of so much of what we got into before.
Yeah, we mentioned some of the stuff.
Yeah, so Meredith doesn't feel like Jen has her best interests at heart, and she really doesn't feel like she has her family's best interests at heart.
Yeah, and Jen is someone who may not be a good liar to the rest of the world, but is terrific at lying to herself. And I think at this point has legitimately convinced herself of the narrative that she did nothing wrong to Meredith.
Yeah, and Meredith begins then to allude to having information about members of the group having extramarital affairs.
Yes! Yes! Because Meredith is a queen!
Yeah, as we said before, allegedly, Meredith, who was separated, and Jen Shaw, who is straight up still just married, fucked a bunch of New York together.
Yeah, and it is... I really feel... I just love Meredith so much in this moment, because to have the balls, after homophobically cyberbullying my son, to look me in the eye and go, how come we're not, like, good friends anymore? Like, what's up with that? The fact that she didn't immediately just rattle off a list of names of every man in New York that Jen has slept with, I think shows a remarkable amount of restraint.
No, instead of completely outing Jen in that moment, Meredith decides to give one of the best exes I've ever seen in Housewives history, where she, her husband Seth hand in hand walk out. She's going on a tirade where she goes, I'm gonna talk about who everyone slept with that no one knows about. Seth and I saw other people. We were separated. Yeah, wow. And Seth, deeply uncomfortable, is just trying to get out of there.
Yeah, it's important to note that she is talking to no one. She is just talking to the camera at this point.
She's talking to camera, various passerbys, the various patrons. It's not to any one particular person. She knows it's recording, and she knows she's in a big room of people.
She's truly ranting like a lunatic.
Heather sees this as she walks by, looks deeply confused, which is how you know that she is not part of the everyone to which Meredith is referring.
Heather is both single, and if she slept with half of New York, her tagline next season would be, I fucked half New York!
Yeah, Heather's whole face is, oh my god, I want to fuck half of New York.
You guys fucked New York and you didn't tell me about it?
Because after Meredith leaves, Jen continues to rant and repeats a point that Lisa made earlier, where she said, it's not my fault that she fucked the entire Upper East fucking side. Again, I'm paraphrasing most of these quotes here.
Which also, this is not important, but I just think as a side note, Meredith, go downtown. There's some good guys in Brooklyn, you know what I mean? Like, go check out Queens, let's go to Jamaica, there's some cool people there.
Kate, I agree with you, that isn't the point.
It's not the point, but it's a point.
You made a point?
I made a point.
She made a point!
I made a point, ladies and gentlemen!
She made a point. We're making points here today.
But as they all sort of just walk away from this explosive fight in what is ultimately a pretty good cliffhanger for season 2 and the upcoming reunion, we end the way we always end every season, in an unflattering freeze frame, followed by text on the screen with
Animal House style recaps of what people have been up to.
It's so funny and it gets me every time.
Yeah, these enders are hilarious for this exact reason.
Because also most of these recaps are essentially pointless because it's just recapping the 2-month period between finishing filming and the show coming out. in which usually nothing happens for most of these women, but occasionally a lot happens for, like, one of these women. Jen Shaw.
Yeah, you see it with Jen Shaw. You've seen it before in the past with Teresa Giudice.
Yeah.
Sometimes, suddenly, things shift.
Yeah, for example, Lisa's text talks about how she's been using her grill to cook more for her kids. And then Jen's is talking about how her trial's been postponed for 3 months and her assistant pled guilty.
Yeah, so, there's a little difference in the information presented. Also, these recaps were given before any of the information about Jenny came out. So there's a lot of softball information about Jenny, whereas I believe they instead would have probably put, Jenny's off the show now!
Jenny's bad and we're sorry.
Which is the disclaimer of the upcoming reunion.
Yeah. Ooh, boy. I also just want to give a little shout out to these editors for managing to find an unflattering still of every single one of these women.
Yeah, some of them are definitely worse than others.
For sure. Some of them are better, for sure.
You can see how much they don't like Lisa in this moment.
They are like, wait till she opens her mouth, wait till she opens her mouth. When it's real wide, freeze it.
Yeah, you can. I want to see no teeth at all.
I honestly feel like they spent an extra half hour making sure they found the worst possible shot of this woman.
Yeah.
But while this episode ends on a cliffhanger to be solved in the upcoming reunion, we're gonna end our episode with our weekly awards.
Yes, let's get into our awards. Let's start off with our flop of the week.
Flop of the week.
Obviously, I think you can probably guess based on the way we talked about it. It was Jenny throwing that glass.
Girl, not since Aviva Drescher half-heartedly tossed her leg across a room have I seen someone so obviously try to shoehorn themselves into the plot.
Silky Nutmeg Ganache on season 11 being ready to lip sync for her motherfucking life would be embarrassed of you right now, Jenny.
Also, I'm not going to take the time to explain these moments, but if you want to see video of them, DM me about it.
Oh yeah, we will definitely send you clips of it from our House Calls Twitter if you want them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With that said, though, our second, and probably also pretty obvious award is Special Delivery!
Ooh, special delivery time!
And since you got a crack at it the first time, I'm gonna take a whirl at this one because, my god, Meredith has had some of the best words all season. My favorite being, I'm sick of all the projecting, the deflecting, and the lying. Who's a fraud now? Love ya, baby.
Yes, and this week she gives us a real gem.
Yeah, you think she can't top herself, and then she does. I'm gonna take a whirl at it. I'm gonna talk about who everyone slept with that nobody knows about.
That is unhinged.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to see her in the Snatch Game. Our third award is our honorable mentions.
Yes, honorable mention this week goes to Tyler, the Teflon Kid.
Yeah, cool-ass nickname you gave yourself for a pretty bummer thing, Tyler.
Yeah, Heather's brother really gives her some good recognition in her efforts to keep the family together, in spite of the fact that she often takes the blame for most of the family's drama. Tyler, you validated your sister's feelings and gave her a moment to feel appreciated. Go, Tyler.
Yeah, I don't often say this about white men named Tyler, but go, Tyler!
Go, Tyler!
And our final award, and easily our most prestigious award.
This prestigious award could have no more of a deserving recipient than the recipient this week.
Yes, our superstar award goes to Brooks Marks. Brooks Marks, we missed you.
As Seth Marks says, to know Brooks Marks is to love Brooks Marks.
Understandably, he avoided the spotlight this season after he was homophobically cyberbullied by an adult woman. I won't stop saying that.
You shouldn't have to stop saying that. It's what happened.
It is exactly what happened.
But during Meredith's photo shoot, Brooks really got to shine.
Oh,
he had that incredible, weird, pseudo-incestuous joke that he made to Chloe, his sister, earlier, which, again, was much funnier than it sounds on paper.
Yeah. It's a beautiful moment, and it really proves that, you create a safe space for someone and they'll get fucking weird with it.
Side note, I think we should split the honorable mentions this week between Tyler and the editors of this episode, because they had to listen to Lisa Barlow say, "I love that," 16 times in one party. Sorry, the setup of one party.
Oh my god. The level of raw footage that these people went through this season and the gold that they plucked from it was next level. Editors, we thank you.
Thank you for your service to us.
Join us next week. This episode's going to be a kind of a two-parter, as next week we're going to talk about reunions with a special focus on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City ladies, since we already know so much about them.
We're going to do a special on the 3 parts of the Salt Lake City reunion, which a lot of information has come out about it before. That, obviously, everything with Jenny, a lot of Jen's trial stuff. Also, we know from leaked reports that Mary does not attend the reunion, although the women do not know that going in.
Exactly. It is kind of oddly fitting goodbye to Mary, even if it is a bittersweet one.
Catch us back next time with an introduction to reunions with the girls of Salt Lake City as our guide. It's been a pleasure calling on you. Bye!